Hi everyone, I'm Kangai and I'm sitting here with Mr. Mutua Matheka.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good.
Is it early for you?
Extremely. Well, it's strange. It's early and late in that normally I will be getting into bed maybe 2 hours ago at the time that I left the house.
But you're a night owl, that's why.
Yeah.
Tell me about yourself.
I am an artist.
Okay.
I'm curious. I make things.
What sorts of things?
I make pictures.
I
I want to get into making furniture.
Really?
I mean, just because it's interesting. Anything that can be made that looks beautiful, I feel incredibly envious of. So yeah, I'm envious of people who make things.
That's pretty interesting.
But I'm envious that I don't have time. I don't know.
Because you're busy.
Yeah, but I don't like being busy.
You don't like being busy?
Because I don't like being busy with a million small things. Because it makes me not slow down.
So that you can create?
So that I can create things that I care about or that I don't care about. So I wish I had more time to create with a clear mind.
Which is what we've been talking about for a long time.
For a long time, yeah. So it's mostly not even being busy doing things, it's being busy in the mind. Sometimes when my mind is in that state, little else happens. I've realized that I'm really good with one humongous task because I do well under pressure. One big task I can do easily. Not easily, but I can. I'll just pump coffee into myself and be like, you tell me tomorrow we need this project, these edits to be done. And I'll be like, okay, that gives me 24 hours. Okay. So I'm not sleeping in these 24 hours and I'll sit on the computer and I'll pump out that work. I'll pump out edits and I'll get efficient the more I do it. First one will take me an hour, the second one 30 minutes, third one 15, and I'll even out at 10. I'll do that very well. But when I have to do that edit, reply some emails, pick something for my wife, make dinner. So they're all small things. Each thing will maybe take me an hour. And there may be 6 things. That should be 6 hours. If you're thinking about it logically, that could take me 48 hours. Because my mind doesn't deal with small, big, and I suck at delegating.
There we go.
Okay, this is the problem. Because I'm not really even low-key. I'm kind of perfectionist and have
as many creatives are.
Ways of doing things. And I believe every other way is wrong. I believe you can do it, but if it's me, I'll do it this way so that I'm happy. There may be other ways to do it, but I'm happy if I do it the way I prefer to. It's just old habits. It's probably not a good thing, but I accept it, and I accept it's how I am.
Those are many tangents we can go on. But then, in terms of the work that you do, you're insanely creative. You're one of Kenya's, if not Kenya's most prolific photographer. I think you are, no, honestly, I think you're the one who literally birthed photography on a professional, commercial, big scale in this country. And how does that make you feel? Like, I'm curious to find out how it would make someone else feel to create something and birth something that has impacted so many people across the world, but actually even here, if you think about the photography community in Kenya, you're a big part of it. So how does that make you feel? When you wake up in the morning, how does it make you feel?
Well, first of all, when people say that, I'm like, I wish I, had vast amounts of wealth that would explain all those accolades, so that it makes sense. Like, I don't want a description like that and then I just talk here the way I am and I'm like, I know it doesn't look like it. I know it doesn't look like much, but what I'd say, okay, first of all, what I'd say to that, I think when I started shooting, there was a small, I think I would call them the ones who started taking it back from the foreign photographers in this country. They were there before me. It was a group of people that kind of started being the Kenyan face of photography in this country. What they did is they made it easier for people like me. I would call ourselves the second generation. People like the late Abudo Omondi, because for me he was one of the first people that I saw doing some good work also. People like Jim Chuchu. For me, obviously, almost every time I talk about Jim because I'm a fanboy. He's single-handedly probably the guy who made me get into photography, because it's his work that I saw that made me see a quality that I associated with foreigners or the West, and I saw it in a Kenyan. It was like, we can do this thing. As Kenyans, we can actually do this, not a foreign thing. I also think people like Kina Paul Munene were still shooting at that time. So people like those, I think, had already started showing that Kenyans can shoot. Then I came in with a huge wave of photographers. The thing that we did for the industry, if you can call it that, is we came with a lot of psych. We were in and we loved what we were doing, and we were not doing it for money. We were just enjoying ourselves. That's why most people remember this group that I came in with. A lot of them are not shooting anymore because this thing is hard, obviously. Trying to make it being consistent, then turning it into a business is even harder. And that's where a lot of us kind of give up. But without all that, then it doesn't become an industry. So even now people say, but now everyone is a photographer. And I'm like, everyone has been a photographer for the past 6 years. Every year there's always a new flood of people who get in and drop out in a year, So
in terms of that, do you feel pressured to remain relevant?
Honestly, yes, I think so. Yeah, I mean, because I was actually saying, I think yesterday, that I think photography now in this age has become a spectator sport, in terms of it's almost becoming a performance other than something that you used to say things.
So instead of letting your art or your photography speak for itself, you have to go and now literally
kind of play the masses.
Yeah.
Because, and the thing is, I don't fault anyone who is playing to that, because it's kind of the world that we are in now.
Social media as well,
especially because of social media, because of democracy, because democratization. That's what democratization of art is. I mean, we're making it to be seen, but then there's the question of, if it's not seen, is it art? So in my mind, for me specifically, I've been going through quite a number of battles in the past maybe 2 or 3 years with all this, because I believe in what I do and why I do it. I mean, now it looks like this shooting rooftops and stuff like that is the popular thing. When I started, it wasn't. Mostly because many people who in Nairobi didn't believe that our city could look that good. I had to keep telling them, it's actually the way it is. I had to tell people my Photoshop is not to enhance, it's more to stitch things. Like I'd shoot this, then I have to stitch them so that you can see the whole panorama, pop the colors a little bit. That's all I had to do. Because I believed in it and I believed in the purpose of the work, I kept doing it. I think it's easier maybe to do things that people like, especially for social media. It's kind of easier, it's encouraging, because you do it and they like it, and so there's positive reinforcement. It's that dopamine.
Especially when someone likes.
Yeah, and unfortunately that feeling is fleeting and I don't think it's not a sustainable motivator to art.
Yeah.
Because then when what you're doing stops being popular, do you keep doing it or do you stop? And that balance is the hard thing. On my Instagram, I already know the stuff. I can tell the stuff that will get most likes or not.
Yes.
My portraits don't. But the sunsets get a lot of traction. So I can play my masses if I wanted.
Is it also based mostly on the fact that that's the audience that you've built?
Probably. Yeah. Exactly. Probably. But then, again, I don't, just because you knew me for this doesn't mean that I want to stick to that, because it's not the only thing important to me. Also, it doesn't mean that I can't change. Now, should I not change? Because people know me as this kind of person. I feel like as an artist, I reserve the right to be whatever I want to be.
Exactly.
If you support me, you support me.
Right.
Not me if I'm the way you want me to be.
Did you find that frustrating though? Because your audience, actually, now that most of our businesses are based on social media, you find that, like if you are going to survive and live, you must please your audience. I know it is. It's very frustrating. I think we all go through that. Yeah. What I believe is it's a voice. When I put out portraits,
I'm not a portrait photographer. There's a purpose to that. I'm trying to shed light on a person, on something they're doing, on a culture. So either way, there's something important attached to it, and it might not be important to you, but it's important to me, and so it's part of my voice. And so I'll still do it. And so now it's just balance, because also the other things, the sunsets, it doesn't mean that I hate them. I love to do it, I just don't want to do it all the time.
Right.
I don't want to be happy and all the time. It might not be important to everyone, but I would like it to be.
Okay.
That's why I love that hashtag post the people, because I feel like it focuses on people and not things. It makes us come back to a place where we appreciate people as people, and so that's what I feel portraiture is about. I've always believed for a long time, just be true to who you are and let the ones that appreciate that stay with you, and let the ones that don't, let them go. One perfect example would probably be the Humans of New York. It was not the common thing to do, but he found something that was important to him, and then it found massive importance from the audience. And when he now left New York for the first time to do a trip overseas, there was a lot of backlash. This is not Humans of the world. But I believe that was just people trying to own something that is not theirs. Because it's not theirs, it's his. He can do whatever he wants with it. And this thing of controlling people's voice, I think, is not right, because if I'm an artist and I want to make this, it might make you feel bad at this point, but your work is not to tell me that, why are you saying this? Don't say this. Don't do this. You're not my voice. I'm my voice. You say what you want to say. I say what I want to say.
This is Fantasia Barino. She said, no longer will we lay our gifts at the feet of others. And when I read this, I was just like, that is deep, because you can't always rely on someone else to build your dream.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to, it is hard to imagine that, because, that resonates a lot, because one thing I consider that worked in my favor specifically was the time that I started shooting. When I started shooting, there was less pressure on myself and from anyone else, because I started shooting and there was no Instagram. I got on Instagram maybe a year later. In that first year, they launched the app. The only social media thing I was on was Twitter. And when I got on Twitter, I didn't even know Twitter is for people following each other.
We thought it was for...
I don't even, let me tell you how it happened. I was doing a daily shoot. I got on this daily shoot because I had my camera, I had a DSLR, no idea how to use it. So I Googled online and I found that there are guys who do a daily shoot exercise. I was like, this could be an interesting way to force myself to learn. Because again, that's why I was telling you, being forced to do something usually is the best way to quickly learn, because you're not the one, it's not at your mercy. So I was on that, and every day, within 24 hours, they'd give us an assignment. And they were announcing these assignments on Twitter. It will be like hashtag daily shoot 268. And you had to shoot images, choose your favorite, edit, upload it, and then automatically it populates on their website. It was a community now. So people would come and see the picture. So I'd be on there looking the theme. I'm like, this guy killed it. Why couldn't I think like that? This one doesn't make sense, no sense. Oh, this one is really good. So started interacting with people from all over the world based on the daily shoots. And then I was like, because I want to track my progress, I'm going to start posting on a blog. So I opened a blog on WordPress. I said I'm going to...
the beginning of mutuamatheka.com.
Precisely.
Okay.
So I was blogging there daily except Saturday, Sunday. And it wasn't for people to see. It was for me to look at in the future and see how
you progress.
That was my thought, because I didn't think people look at stuff like this. And then people started looking at it on Twitter and sharing it. And I was like, there's actually an audience. Then it became big. And also at that time, remember, I never ever thought photography was in my future.
You're working as an architect
at
the time, right?
Yes.
Okay. So there was zero pressure at the time?
Zero pressure. Photography was literally the fun thing that I was doing, which I've been doing all my life. I've been painting, sketching, all that stuff all my life as a side thing while I'm doing my main thing.
So really, you didn't feel at the time that there were gatekeepers, because that was not your focus.
Yeah, because that was not even my focus. I was just doing things, and apparently by doing these things, it was breaking down some walls without even knowing that was happening. And it was encouraging many other people to pick up photography, and we'd do all these meetups, we'd hang out to shoot. That's how One Touch started.
And One Touch has become such a big movement now.
And that's how, it was basically that. We're just looking for a way to just shoot. And again, we're all doing it for ourselves, for our own accolades. I didn't care about the rest of the people. It was like we'd shoot, then we put it all together. This guy blogs, this one blogs, and we all see the same perspective of the same shoot. Right. And that's what we appreciated. And so now I honestly feel sad for anyone starting photography now.
Why?
Because already they're starting with all these voices telling them where they need to be. And they have no clue about what they're doing. Yeah. But already a voice is telling them where they need to be. Already a voice is telling them, you need to check out Mutua Matheka's work. But they're just starting. Some of them don't even have cameras. They just have their phones, and they're under all this pressure already. They are comparing 6 years of work when they've just started. They're seeing all these 1,000 likes. They're seeing 80k followers. For them, that feels like the dream. For me, I feel like I'm just starting.
Right.
So when people say they want to be like me, first I'm sad for them, and then I tell myself, no.
Yeah.
No. Because I know when I look at where I am, I feel like it's just the beginning.
Right.
In fact, I feel like it will be just the beginning in the next 4 years. I always say that there are some questions that people have that will answer themselves in a year, in 2 years,
in 3 years.
In 3 years. Yeah. They will answer themselves if they just allow that to happen. I know, because I had the same questions. Because like if you're asking yourself things about your direction, let's say as a photographer, if you've only been shooting a year, I feel like that shouldn't be your concern about your where you're headed. It should just be practice, precisely. It should be, your concern should be copying what other people are doing.
Yeah.
That's the job that you're supposed to be doing. I'm still copying what people do.
Because even for you, because you're looked at in Kenya as one of the best. But I'm sure when you look at your own work and you compare it to some of the world's photographers.
And even some guys, people like Osborne, I look at their work and I'm like, don't try call me anything near the best, because I am nowhere near what he's doing. Yes. But the only thing is that I've gotten to a place where I appreciate anyone making big moves. For me, making big moves is when you make drastic decisions for your art and giving it the opportunity to either leap in bounds or totally fail. Like I feel many awesome things in life have that thing where it works or it destroys you. Because I think even things like love, someone said love is not love if it can't be taken advantage of. And I think that's true, because if it's true, it has to be that you've laid yourself bare. And when you're in that state, it can be trampled on or it could go to some great, And with our work is the same thing. I also heard Seth Godin. He talks about how the thing that you're doing, if it does not have the opportunity to massively fail, then there's no point.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. That encouraged me now, especially.
Why now?
Because of what I'm trying to do with Unscrambling, and it has the massive opportunity of failing in a big way. And I'm not okay with that, but I'm okay with it.
I actually wanted to ask you about that. First of all, if you're tuning in right now, this is Kangai, and I'm chilling here with Mutua. We're just having a conversation about photography and the creative process and failure. So tell me more about Unscrambling Africa. Where did the vision come from? Where did the inspiration come from? Is it going to form a huge part of your future going forward? So tell us more.
Okay. Unscrambling Africa, in the very bare form, is a project, but really more like a movement that is about using art to change narratives about Africa for Africans. For Africans first, by Africans.
Okay.
Because when I started shooting, I thought people in the West have a wrong idea of what Africa is, and so I want to show them. But soon I realized that people in Africa, we have the wrong idea about Africa because of what we've seen. And we don't understand how deep these opinions are in ourselves. And when we ask ourselves why, we don't know how we got there. but we watched it so much on TV, it formed our opinion about our home, yet we are here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which is...
And because you believe the media because it's from the West.
Precisely.
Whatever is American
exactly.
is the truth.
And this is the weird thing, because Kenyan or local media is trying to be like international media. So they report things the same way.
Even sometimes not at all. Sometimes
Or not
you find that
precisely.
something happens in Ethiopia or Somalia and the network you find it out from is BBC.
Yeah.
Or Al Jazeera, not KTN.
Not KTN, precisely. And so by doing that, they still keep perpetuating the same
Stereotypes.
yeah. The same ideals about what Africa is. The same narrative keeps going. So one of the benefits of being online, the fact that most of us Africans are young and we can take charge of telling our story. Now, Unscrambling Africa, we realized just the other day as we was talking about the project that we might have given that a name,
Right.
but we are not the first to try to unscramble Africa. Neither will we be the last. And we are not the only ones doing it. We think there are very many people working to unscramble Africa without calling it Unscrambling Africa. We've just probably given a term to this whole thing of just bringing us together. In the past, and by default, Africans are separate from ourselves. Like, we are in our own countries and we don't know much about what is happening in Kenya except what BBC and CNN tells us. The only way we can break that is if we jump on Twitter and then see what someone else is doing or tweeting about. Is if we can jump on Instagram and see what people in Dakar are photographing, see what people in Johannesburg are shooting, see what people in Cairo are shooting. And all this together unscrambles us in our minds.
Right.
Most importantly, it's actually not a matter of changing the narrative to say Africa is not poor, Africa is not, suffering and all that. It's saying, despite all this, Africa has beauty, and this is the beauty. You will see the slum, but you will also see pictures of Nairobi that are more what we see every day. All of it is Nairobi. So the narrative shouldn't be skewed. And that's the same thing with Africa. It's always one side, but what we want is a balanced thing. We want the good, the bad, and the ugly all together. So it's not just acacias with a beautiful glowing sun behind them. It's a real beauty because it's not magic. That's why I like what he said. Being magic doesn't mean it's not real. So that's the thing. With Africa, it's possible to romanticize that and see it as extreme problems versus incredible sunsets. Both of those things dehumanize the actual people. But when we start talking about the beauty in the cities, then we start seeing people who live there and their kind of life as opposed to, it's these animals.
Yeah. Do you feel like that also could be part of your mission? Because what I felt is, if you look at our parents' generation, they're dying off. And if you look at our kids, they can't speak I can't speak my mother tongue.
Yeah.
And my kids definitely, possibly, will not even be able to speak Swahili.
Yeah.
So, do you feel an urgency to capture the history of our continent in the way that our parents' generation remembered it?
That's a tough one. I will say, I feel that urgency in terms of, I've always felt like I wish I was able to capture Nairobi in the 50s. I wish, but I can't.
Yeah.
All I have is what it is now.
Yeah.
But this, what it is now, will be very important to people 50 years from now. So I have to do that and keep doing that. There's obviously a very huge lack of African history. Real African history.
Cultural history, right?
Because most of the history that we have was written by the colonial masters, so how do we even know that we can trust it?
Yeah.
I'm skeptical personally of that because it seems to not talk about people being against them.
There's a bias somewhere.
So it is bias.
Yeah.
I think part of colonialism was that they kind of had to eradicate who you are so that they can have control over you.
Right.
It's just the way it was. Because when people know who they are, when you know who you are, it's very hard for you to be controlled. Precisely. Kunta Kinte. Let's not talk about roots. And also this is a challenge to the notion that history is traditional. Because history is not about it being traditional in the true sense of tradition, So for me, if you ask me in terms of my work, what I want my legacy to be, will be that my body of work captured Africa in an unbiased way over time. I just want for someone to be able to look through my collection and to have a very good idea of how African cities evolved, what civilization looked like, what technology looked like, what architecture meant to us, and how people used them. I want that to be my legacy.
It'll be interesting if you listen to this in 30 years.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Because I wonder whether the goal will be the same. I wonder whether time will have made me jaded. I wonder if we'll be able to look back and say, it actually made a difference. That's why it's important to do things that are important to you. Because time will always pass. And you'll have done things for the likes. And that will mean nothing in 10 years. Yeah.
Thank you so much for giving me your time, Mutua. You've been listening to me, Kangai, and Mutua, sitting here and just chatting about creativity, the creative process, and Mutua's journey as a photographer. So you can find Mutua Matheka online on social media, yes?
Yes, as Truth Slinger.
Yes, so look for @TruthSlinger, that's TruthSlinger, and all those links will be somewhere around this conversation, below in the description somewhere.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mutua.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Appreciate it.